your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts call Rachelle Bond.
Stand right here, raise your right hand and face the clerk.
You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give this court and jury in the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Have a seat, please.
Right this way. Good afternoon. That microphone will help amplify your voice, but you also need to speak loud so that the juror at the very end can hear you. Okay?
Good afternoon, Ms. Bond.
Good afternoon.
Could I ask you please to introduce yourself to the jurors and spell your first and last name for the court reporter?
Rachelle Bond, Rachelle Bond.
Okay. Ms. Bond, where are you living today?
Suffolk County House of Corrections?
That's the Suffolk County Jail?
Yes.
At Nashua Street?
Yes.
And is that where you'll go back after the court day today for the weekend?
Yes.
What's your date of birth, Ms. Bond?
7/25/75.
Okay. And that makes you how old today?
41.
Where were you born?
Des Moines, Iowa.
And how long did you live in Des Moines?
About 2 years.
Whom did you live with? I mean, understanding that you may not know this exactly, but according to your family history, with whom did you live in Des Moines for those 2 years?
My mother and father.
And what's your mother's name?
Edith Bond.
And Ms. Bond, I'm going to ask you if you would adjust your microphone so you're speaking as directly as you can into it and keep your voice up nice and strong. Okay?
Yep.
What's your father's name?
I don't know.
When you left Des Moines, Iowa, you were 2, is that correct?
Yes.
And where did you go?
I think in New Hampshire, our grandparents lived.
Is that your mother's parents?
Yes.
And what are their names?
Rufus and Mabel Bond.
And do you know where in New Hampshire they were living when you moved there?
Concord.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have a sister.
And what's her name?
Tamara.
Is she older than you or younger than you?
Older.
Do you know her date of birth?
September 10th, 1971.
So that makes her approximately 4 years older than you are?
Yes.
And was she living with you when you moved from Des Moines, Iowa to New Hampshire?
Yes.
How long did your family stay in New Hampshire? By the way, did your father come with you?
No.
So was it just your mother and you and your sister?
Yes.
How long did your family stay in New Hampshire?
I'm not sure. I think less than a year.
And where did you go from there?
Lawrence.
Where in Lawrence?
I don't know the exact address.
And was it still the 3 of you?
Yes.
How long did you live in Lawrence?
Maybe a year, maybe
And
less.
Where did you go from there?
Acton.
And how long did you live in Acton?
We lived there until I was about 10.
Did you go to elementary school there? And where did you move when you were 10?
To Hubbardston, Massachusetts.
And how long did you live in Hubbardston?
Till I left home. My mother still lives there.
Over the course of time, were there men who lived with you and your mother and sister for periods of time?
Yes.
And did you go to middle school and high school? And where did you go to middle school and high school?
Quabbin Regional, Barry, Mass.
And is that, you were living in Acton at that time?
In Middle School.
Yes.
Hubbardston.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Okay, you were living in Hubbardston. Did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
And did you do any college?
A year and a half college.
And where did you do your year and a half of college?
Mount Westchester Community College.
Did you graduate from community college?
No.
Where were you living when you were attending Mount Wachusett Community College?
At my mother's.
That was in Hubbardston?
Yes.
And what did you do when you left college?
I moved in with a friend of mine.
And did you work?
Yes.
And through how much of your life did you work?
Most of it.
What kind of work did you do?
When I was a teenager, fast food restaurant, like Cappuccinos and McDonald's, and as I get older, restaurants, sometimes factory work, because Pittsburgh's all factories, and that's where I moved to.
Did you, at some point in your life, begin using drugs?
Yes.
How old were you when you began using drugs?
I smoked marijuana early, before I was 18 maybe.
Do you recall how old you were when you started smoking marijuana?
Not exactly, no.
Did you move on to harder drugs?
Later on, yes.
What harder drugs did you move on to?
Occasionally, me and my friend would go to the bar and do coke.
How old were you when you started doing cocaine?
I was old enough to go to the bar, so I was 21.
And aside from cocaine, did you move on to other harder drugs?
Yes.
What was that? Or what were they?
When I was about 24, I started smoking crack. And
how long did you smoke crack?
a couple of years.
Is that something that you did only for those couple of years, or did that recur later in your adult life?
It occurred later too.
So, you indicated that you started smoking marijuana as a teenager, that you used cocaine and crack cocaine. Did you move on to any other drugs?
Yes, heroin.
And how old were you when you started using heroin?
It was like 33 or 34.
And in addition to, did you develop an addiction? Well, let me ask you this. In your opinion, did you become addicted to any of these drugs as you started using them?
Yes.
Which ones?
Crack and heroin.
And in addition to the drugs you've already listed, did you use other illegal drugs? I'm not asking about prescription drugs, but illegal drugs over the course of your life?
Marijuana.
Other than that?
No.
What about, did you ever use prescription medication without an appropriate prescription?
Yes.
Which ones?
I've used Klonopin, Clonidine.
Ms. Bond, over the course of your life, have you sold drugs?
Yes.
And over the course of your life, have you at times sold yourself for sexual purposes?
Yes.
Have you had children, Ms. Bond?
Yes.
When is the first, who was, and understanding that we're using pseudonyms in this case, but when did you first have a child?
I had a son on March 13th, 1998.
March 13th of 1998?
Yes.
Which would have made you how old?
I was 23.
And we'll call your son, for the purposes of this proceeding, Alan.
Yes.
And you understand I'm using a pseudonym to protect his privacy, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you lose custody of Alan as a result of a court proceeding?
Yes.
And was that in December of 2000?
Yes.
And was that as a result of a finding by the Department of Social Services at that time, a finding of neglect and a risk of physical abuse?
Yes.
Did you have any other pregnancies after you lost custody of Alan?
Yes, I had a daughter in August 15th, 2001.
In between those two children, did you have any other pregnancies?
Yes, I had twins that I gave birth to early.
And did they survive the birth process?
No.
When was that?
About 99, 2000, no, 2000.
After that, I believe you indicated that you had a daughter,
Yes.
and for the purposes of this proceeding, we're going to use the name Amy for her.
Yes.
And when was Amy born?
August 15, 2001.
And did you care for Amy after her birth?
Yes.
Did you eventually lose custody of Amy?
Yes.
And was that in 2006?
Yes.
So she was either 4 or 5 years old at that time?
Yes.
Do you recall which?
Almost 5.
And did you lose custody of Amy as a result of a court ruling that was based on a Department of Children and Families, which became the name for the Department of Social Services by that time, as a result of a finding by the Department of Children and Families of neglect?
Yes.
After you lost custody of Amy, describe what happened in terms of your life.
I started using heroin.
And after you lost custody of Amy, did you have a stable home?
No.
Where did you go to live?
I became homeless.
And where were you living when you lost custody of Amy?
At my sister's.
Where was that?
In Gardner, Mass.
How long did you stay there?
After I lost her,
Yes.
maybe a night,
And then what happened?
I left, became homeless, and started using heavily.
Where did you go when you were homeless? I mean, where were you living as a homeless person?
Sometimes at friends' houses and sometimes on the street.
In what area?
Pittsburgh.
And you said you were using heavily at that time?
Yes.
What were you using?
Heroin, crack, coke, whatever really.
When you say that you were homeless, did you spend time during that time in shelters?
No.
So where typically would you sleep when you were homeless?
On the street.
Um,
I slept.
How did you survive? How did you get money to live?
Sometimes selling drugs, sometimes prostitution.
Ms. Bond, along those lines, were you convicted in 2005 in the Fitchburg District Court of larceny over $250? Were you convicted in 2006 in the Fitchburg District Court of possession of a hypodermic needle or syringe? Were you convicted in 2007 in the Fitchburg District Court of possession of marijuana?
Yes.
Were you convicted in 2006 in the Fitchburg District Court of 1 count of possession of heroin and 1 count of use of a motor vehicle without authority?
Yes.
Were you convicted in 2007 in the Fitchburg District Court of 1 count of possession of heroin and 1 count of possession of cocaine?
Yes.
Were you convicted in the Fitchburg District Court in 2007 of use of a motor vehicle without authority?
Yes.
Were you convicted in 2008 in the Fitchburg District Court of possession of heroin?
Yes.
Were you convicted in 2008 in the Fitchburg District Court for sexual conduct for a fee?
Yes.
Were you convicted in the Fitchburg District Court in 2008 for possession of heroin and possession of cocaine?
Yes.
Were you convicted in the Fitchburg District Court in 2009 of distributing or dispensing cocaine?
Yes.
Were you convicted in 2011 in the Boston Municipal Court of possession actually, let me ask you it this way, of possession of a Class E substance, that is prescription medication?
Yes.
Unlawful possession? Were you convicted of a second count in the Boston Municipal Court in 2011 of possession of a unlawful possession of a prescription medication?
Yes.
And were you also convicted at the same time in the Boston Municipal Court of possession of a prescription substance with the intent to distribute it?
Yes.
Were you convicted in 2011 in the Boston Municipal Court of sexual conduct for a fee?
Yes.
Ms. Bond, are you testifying in this trial today pursuant to a cooperation agreement with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
Yes.
And what is your understanding of that cooperation agreement?
That I tell the story that I tell the truth under oath, and that after this trial I will be let out of jail on probation.
And especially because I think I may have misspoken in my opening statement, how long will you be on probation for after you're released from incarceration?
2 years.
And is it your understanding that your plea agreement depends, or your cooperation agreement depends in any way on the outcome of this trial, meaning what the verdict is?
No.
Ms. Bond, in February of this year, did you enter a guilty plea as to 2 charges in connection with this case?
Yes.
Did you plead guilty in this case to larceny over $250?
Yes.
And was that for fraudulently continuing to receive benefits on behalf of your daughter, Isabella Bond, after she was no longer alive?
Bella Bond, yes.
I'm sorry, so Bella, but her legal name Isabella?
It's Bella.
And did you additionally plead guilty to being an accessory after the fact to the murder of your daughter, Bella Bond?
Yes.
And were you arrested in connection with this case on September 18th of 2015?
Yes.
And have you been incarcerated in connection with this case since that time?
Yes.
And it's your understanding that at the conclusion of this trial you will be sentenced to what amounts to time served, meaning you'll be released from incarceration?
Yes.
And begin a 2-year probationary sentence?
Yes.
Let me just interrupt there to tell the jury what we already suggested in the empanelment process, that in evaluating this witness's credibility because of this plea agreement, cooperation agreement that was just mentioned, it does mean that you should examine the witness's credibility with particular care. You can consider the agreement and any hopes that the witness may have about receiving future advantages from the Commonwealth, in particular the sentence, and you must determine whether this witness's testimony has been affected by her interest in the outcome of the case and any benefits that she has received or expects to receive. You should consider the fact that the government does not know whether the witness is telling the truth. That's going to be up to you to decide.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Bond, who was Bella's, well, let me ask you this. Who was Bella's father?
Joseph Amoroso.
And when did the two of you meet?
In May 2011.
Are you sure? You can't ask me. Is it May of 2011?
Sorry. It's nervous, sorry. Yeah, I think it was May 2011, yes.
And where were you living at the time?
I was homeless.
Where were you homeless?
Oh, in Boston, I'm sorry.
So when did you come from being homeless in the Fitchburg area to being homeless here in the Boston area?
2008.
So
It was May 2011, yes.
And where were you living at the time?
I was homeless.
Where were you homeless?
Oh, in Boston, I'm sorry.
So when did you come from being homeless in the Fitchburg area to being homeless here in the Boston area?
2008.
So you had been living on the streets in Boston for several years before you met Mr. Amoroso?
Yes.
How did you meet him?
I was in Copley at 7-Eleven, and he went by to go in, and I thought he was cute, so I asked him if he had spare change or something, or a couple bucks or something, and he was like, hold on, and he came back out, and then we ended up talking and hitting it off, and he was going to get high, and I went with him.
When you say he was going to get high, what was he going to get high on?
Crack.
So, having met him for a very short time, you decided you'd go off and smoke crack. Was it smoking that you were smoking crack?
Yes.
Smoke crack with him?
Yes.
And did you do that?
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this. After doing that, did the two of you stay together or go your separate ways?
No, we pretty much stayed together after that.
Where was he living at the time?
He was homeless.
So, if you remember that first night that you were together, where did you stay?
Him and his friend had a tent near the Andrew Station, and that's where we stayed.
Andrew Station?
Yes.
So, you essentially moved into his tent at Andrew Station?
Yes.
Did the two of you stay together for a period of time?
Yes.
How long?
So like almost January, actually till April of 2012.
So, having hit it off initially, you stayed living together?
Yes.
And did this at some point become a romantic relationship, a physical relationship?
Yes.
And how long after getting to know him did that happen?
Not long.
Did the two of you continue to use drugs together?
A little bit, but not much.
Why not much?
I wanted to stay sober. I was trying to.
And what about him?
Sometimes he'd try to get high, but if I was staying sober, he would too.
Did the two of you stay living in the tent at Andrews Station for the entire time that you were together?
So Occupy Boston started at some point, and we ended up going there.
Do you recall when it started?
I don't remember exactly. I know it was nice out still. It was probably end of summer.
So, until Occupy Boston started, were you continuing to live at Andrews Station?
Yes.
Did you ever live anywhere else until you moved to Occupy Boston?
No.
Who moved to Occupy Boston?
What do you mean?
Well, I gather you and Mr. Amoroso, did his friend move with you?
Oh, yes.
And was there anybody else in the Occupy, where was the Occupy Boston encampment?
I think it's called Dewey Square, across from South Station.
And was there anybody else at the Occupy Boston encampment that you knew?
There was quite a few people there. Just
Anybody specifically related to Mr. Amoroso?
his mother and her husband.
And what's his mother's name?
Patty, Patricia Quinn.
Patricia Quinn?
Yes.
And what's her husband's name?
Dale Drake.
Did you know them before you met Mr. Amoroso?
No.
But they were also living in the Occupy Boston encampment?
Yes.
Who came there first, you or them?
Us.
And how long after you came there did they come?
I'm not quite sure. I don't think it was that long.
Were you and Mr. Amoroso using drugs while you were living in Occupy Boston?
Sometimes, sometimes not.
What drugs were you using?
Suboxone, usually.
Did you use anything, while you were at Occupy Boston, did you use anything besides Suboxone?
I think we used heroin a couple times.
How about crack cocaine?
I don't think so.
How regularly or frequently would you use drugs while you're living in Occupy Boston?
Not often.
What does that mean in terms of how many times a week, how many times a month?
Maybe we do like a piece of Suboxone. We'd like split a half of one or something every like week or so.
Let me ask you, in your life at that time, what would be the effect effect of taking Suboxone? Like, what effect did it have on you physically?
Being sober just made you not want to use, really.
Did you get high from Suboxone?
Not the amount we were taking, no.
Could you get high from Suboxone by taking greater quantities?
Yes.
And did you ever do that while you were in Occupy Boston?
Yes, I think we have.
And how often did you do that while you were in Occupy Boston?
Like I said, not often. It wasn't a recurring thing very often.
Did something happen in Occupy Boston that led you to look to live somewhere else?
I got pregnant.
And when was it that you realized that you were pregnant?
About November 2000.
Do you remember 2000?
2011.
Do you remember when in November you just realized that you become pregnant?
About the end.
And what was it about your pregnancy that caused you to want to look for somewhere else to live?
I didn't want to be living in a tent forever being pregnant.
Why?
You can't have your child in a tent. I want to try and get my life together.
Because you suppose you could have a child in a tent?
I mean, I suppose, but I wasn't going to raise my child in a tent.
So where did you go?
So I ended up going to a shelter.
Which one?
Woods Mullen.
The Woods Mullen shelter?
Yes.
Where's that?
I think it's on Mass Ave.
Is that a men's shelter, women's shelter, or both?
Both.
So when you went there, did Mr. Amoroso go with you?
Yes.
And did you stay there, once you went there at the end of November, did you stay there continuously?
Yes.
For how long?
Until the end of December.
And what happened in the end of December?
We got in a fight at McDonald's when I was eating, and I stormed out on him and got pulled over by the police and had warrants.
You got pulled over by the police?
Well, I was walking and they wanted to know why I was upset, and they asked my name and I had warrants.
Oh, I see. I misheard you. I thought you said you had words. You had
Warrants, I'm sorry.
Do you remember what the warrants were for?
I think it was the Class E. Yeah, it was the Class E, drugs and prostitution.
So those last 4 convictions that I read on your probation record?
Yes, sir.
What happened when the police realized you had warrants?
They took me to lockup and then jail.
And which jail was that?
South Bay.
The same one you're in now?
Yes.
How long did you stay there?
I think I got out in about May 2012.
Are there any particular provisions that the jail makes for pregnant women who are incarcerated there?
Provisions as in?
Are they able to sort of give you the necessary prenatal care and that kind of thing, the things that you would expect for pregnancy?
They brought me to BMC for my prenatal care.
So that's where you got your prenatal care?
Yes.
And why did you get released?
I had a 6-month sentence.
So you finished that sentence?
Yes.
Where did you go when you were released from the South Bay?
I didn't have anywhere to go, so I had asked a friend, how could I get a shelter or something for pregnant women, and so first I went to the DTA on 1010 Mass Ave, I think it is, and they told me I had to go to the Roxbury DTA for family shelters.
DTA stands for what?
Department of Transitional Assistance.
So you went to the one on Massachusetts Avenue and they sent you to Roxbury?
Yes.
Did you go there?
Yes.
And what happened when you went there?
I waited and I did a screening or evaluation or something, and at the end of the day they placed me in a family shelter.
Where was that family shelter?
Roxbury.
Where was Mr. Amoroso when you got out of jail?
In April of that year he had stopped writing me and ended up in Florida.
So until April he was writing to you while you were in jail?
Yes.
Did he visit you at all?
No.
Just wrote to you?
Yes.
Did you write back?
Yes.
And he stopped writing in April?
Yes.
In April at the time, did you know why he stopped writing?
No, I had ended up calling his mother and she told me he left for Florida.
What is the name of the shelter that you went to when you left the Roxbury Department of Transitional Assistance?
Mary Ellen McCormick.
And do you know how to spell that?
Maryllen, Mccormack.
And what kind of shelter is that?
It's a family shelter for women with children or families with children.
Do you know how many families they can accommodate at any given time at Maryllen and McCormick?
I think it's 28.
And so you were you had one. Are there, at the Maryllen and McCormick shelter, is it a shelter with sort of a large room and lots of beds, or did people have their own rooms?
Everybody had their own room.
So you had your own room there?
Yes.
And while you were at how long did you stay at the Maryllen and McCormick shelter?
Till I think it was July or August of 2013.
2013?
Yes.
Okay. While you were in the Maryllen, when was Bella born?
August 6, 2012.
And you were living in the Maryllen and McCormick shelter at that time?
Yes.
Where did you deliver her?
At Boston Medical Center.
Was it a normal delivery, or were there complications?
It was normal.
And after you gave birth to her, how long did you stay in the hospital?
I think it was 3 days.
And then where did you go?
Back to the shelter.
So now you had Bella with you at the shelter?
Yes.
Did you nurse her or bottle feed her?
At first I exclusively nursed, and then sometimes I'd supplement after a few months.
How long did you nurse?
Almost a year.
What was your experience? How did you feel when Bella was delivered?
Ecstatic.
Why?
She was awesome.
In the Maryllen McCormick shelter, I gather the two of you had your own room?
Yes.
And where did Bella sleep when you returned there with her?
I had a bassinet for her and a crib, but a lot of times I'd sleep in bed with her.
And while you were at the shelter, where did you and Bella have your meals? I understand she was an infant, so she wasn't exactly having meals, but where would you have your meals?
They had a they had a community living room and a community dining room and a kitchen.
And were you able to spend as much time at the Maryllen McCormick shelter there as you wanted during the day?
Yes.
So how long altogether did you live at the Maryllen McCormick shelter?
Almost a year.
And were you
over a year, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Were you in touch with Mr. Amoroso during that time?
I tried to.
How?
He called by phone.
So he had a phone?
Yes.
And did you have a cell phone at that time?
Yes.
And when you talked to him, well, let me ask you this. Did you ever exchange, other than phone calls, did you ever exchange anything else? Text messages, emails, photographs, that kind of thing?
Yes.
What did you exchange?
Text messages, pictures of Bella.
You sent him pictures of Bella?
Yeah.
How often?
Probably almost every time he texts or called, probably.
And how often was that?
No. It all varied, maybe once every 3 months, once every 6.
Was anybody from Mr. Amoroso's extended family involved in Bella's life when she was just born and in the months that followed?
Yes.
Who?
Her grandmother, his mother.
And that's Miss Quinn?
Yes.
Where was she living at the time?
In Lynn.
And how is it that she was involved in Bella's life?
I would bring Bella out to see her probably twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week.
How did you get out to Lynn? How did you get Bella out to Lynn?
Buses and trains.
Do you remember how from the Maryllen McCormick shelter you went? Like what bus to what train?
I would take the bus to the red line, and then the red lines to the orange line, to the blue line, and then another bus to Wonderland, and then walk from there to our house.
How long a walk was it from Wonderland?
5 minutes.
So how long, on average, I mean, I understand it's different when buses coming and going and trains, but on average, how long did it take you to get from the Maryllen McCormick shelter to Miss Quinn's home?
Anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours. It depended if there was delays or anything too.
Is that Round trip or each way?
each way.
From what you could tell, did Ms. Quinn enjoy taking care of Bella?
She enjoyed seeing her. I didn't let her take care of her.
She wasn't taking, I see, so she didn't take care of her.
No.
It was visits?
Yes, I was always there.
And how long did you continue to take Bella to see her grandmother?
So she was about maybe between 7 and 9 months old. I'm not exactly sure, but
And why did you stop?
Her husband and her just started fighting with me about things, and I asked them if they would meet me instead, because it was just a long trip, and I had been doing it for so long, and she was so little, and they said it wasn't worth their time to meet me. So I said, well, then it's not worth my time to come out there for 3 hours. 6-hour rides, actually.
It sounds like you've already answered part of my next question, but what was it that you were fighting with them about?
So Patty, I don't know, Dale put it in Patty's head that I wanted them to meet me because something about I didn't want her to see her granddaughter anymore if they were still together.
Okay. And after you stopped taking Bella to see them, did they have contact with you?
Dale would send threatening text messages and be rude and vile, but other than that, no.
After you left the Mary Ellen McCormick, why did you leave the Mary Ellen McCormick shelter?
Me and the staff member had an argument, and so I went to another shelter.
So they told you to go to a different shelter?
I transferred.
And what was that shelter?
St. Ambrose.
And where's the St. Ambrose shelter?
It's off, I don't remember the exact address, but it's off of Adams Street in Dorchester.
And what sort of shelter is that?
It's a family shelter.
Do you remember how many families they could accommodate at one time?
It was small. Let's see, maybe 10 to 15. I don't remember exactly, but it was very small.
Did you have your own room there too?
Yes.
And was it the same situation where they had communal meals that you ate there?
But they didn't really have communal meals anywhere. You made your own.
Oh, I'm sorry, communal cooking.
Communal,
I should have said communal cooking.
Yeah, the area or the kitchen was, yeah.
And how long did you stay at the St. Ambrose shelter?
2 months, about.
What happened at the end of the 2 months?
I got an apartment.
Where was the apartment that you got?
115 Maxwell Street.
How did you get it?
DMH. I won like a raffle for a voucher.
And so you got the apartment. Was there also a rent subsidy?
Yes, I paid 40% of my income.
And how old was Bella when you got that apartment?
A little bit over a year.
How did you feel about getting your own apartment?
It was awesome.
Let me ask you this. From the time that Bella was born until you got your apartment, first of all, what was your source or sources of income?
It was disability for me, and TAFDC, I think it was called for her.
Transitional aid to families with dependent children?
Yes.
And did you supplement that income in any way during that time, from the time Bella was born until the time that you moved into the apartment?
Yes, sometimes if we needed extra money, I would sell my medications.
And what medications were being prescribed to you at that time?
Clonazepam and gabapentin.
And what was clonazepam prescribed to you for?
PTSD and anxiety.
And what was gabapentin prescribed to you for?
At first it was prescribed for my sciatica, and then it helps with like mood swings or depression, if that's it.
And so rather than taking the medication, you sold it?
Some.
And why did you do that?
If we didn't have enough, if she needed things that are, just to give her extra.
What kind of extra things?
Toys, whatever, clothes, shoes, whatever extra.
Did you buy things for yourself with that money as well?
Sometimes.
What kinds of things?
Clothes, shoes, things for the house.
And I'm not asking you to name names at this point, but what type of people did you sell your prescription medications to?
People that I had known that are addicts, basically.
When you moved into the apartment on Maxwell Street, Bella was how old?
About 13 months.
And describe her as a child at 13 months, what she was like.
She was always happy.
Always?
Yeah.
Never unhappy?
Not really, no. She's a pretty happy child.
And when you moved into the apartment, or let me ask you this, even before you moved into your apartment, when you were in the St. Ambrose shelter, for example, when she was around 1, what type of things did you like to do with her?
In the St. Ambrose shelter?
Yeah, or at that time. It doesn't have to be in the shelter, but while you were living there, what kinds of things did the two of you like to do together?
We'd go out to the park a lot, or just go to the commons, just walk around, be outside, go to her godparents' house a lot.
And who were her godparents?
Megan Futrell and Michael Ripley.
And what was their relationship to you?
Really good friends.
Were there things that you felt that you could do in your apartment that you couldn't do as well or as easily in the shelters?
I mean, I could go out and stay out till I wanted to, or, leave in the morning when I needed to without having to sign out and sign in and make sure I'm not late.
Anything else?
I smoked marijuana.
What about meals and meal preparation? Was that
yeah,
any different in the apartment than in the shelters?
Yeah, I cooked from scratch everything for her, so it was a little bit easier than in the shelter.
Do you like to cook?
Yeah.
What kinds of things did you cook when you moved in the apartment with your daughter?
Everything. I used to make homemade sweet potato pie. She loved lobster bisque and homemade pasta sauce and baked beans and chili and homemade pizzas all the time. Stuff like that.
Where did you learn to cook?
Basically self-taught.
And was she a good eater, picky eater?
She was a good eater.
Where did Bella get her pediatric care?
Boston Medical Center.
And who was responsible for making sure that she got there for appointments, that kind of thing?
Me.
Was she up to date with her medical care?
Yes.
When did you move into your apartment on Maxwell Street?
It was September 2013.
And so Bella would have been 13 months, as you said.
Yes.
Was it always just the two of you living there at all times?
Sometimes I'd have friends over, stay for a little while, a month or so.
For a month or so?
Yeah, one person stays longer.
So let me ask you this. Were these all friends, or were some of them, for lack of a better term, boyfriends?
2 of them were boyfriends.
And who was the first boyfriend to come to live with you?
Keith Chardrin.
Maybe I'll ask you to spell that for the court.
No, excuse me, I'm sorry, that was the last. It was Gregory Rossiter.
Gregory Rossiter?
Mm-hmm.
Can you spell his last name for the court reporter?
Rossiter.
And how long had you known him?
Over 20 years.
Is it when he came to live with you, was that the first time that you had a romantic or physical relationship with him?
No, he was the father of the twins that I lost.
And how long did he live with you?
Couple months.
Let me ask you this. When you moved into the apartment, you and Bella, were you using drugs? I know you said you smoked marijuana in the apartment, but aside from that, were you using drugs?
No.
Nothing?
No, I didn't use them.
When Mr. Rossiter came to live with you, did that change?
No. We drank a couple times. That was it.
No drugs at all?
No. Marijuana. I'm sorry.
Well, okay. I understand. How long was it after Mr. Rossiter left before another man came to live with you? By the way, just so I know, how long after you moved in did Mr. Rossiter move in?
That was 2014.
When in 2014?
March.
So that's several months.
Yeah,
And he was there for how long?
a couple months.
Till when?
I think it was maybe May, maybe April or May.
And how long was it before the next boyfriend moved in with you?
So then Keith came around Christmas of the next year,
Christmas of what year? 2000?
2014.
Okay.
But
And what was his last name?
Chartrand.
Can you spell that for the court reporter, please?
Schartrand. Sorry.
And is he somebody is that the first time that you had been in a romantic or physical relationship with him?
Yes.
And how long did he stay there?
About a month.
While he was there, were you using drugs?
No.
Aside from marijuana still?
Yes, and I was prescribed Suboxone at the time.
You were prescribed Suboxone?
Yes.
Why were you prescribed Suboxone at that time?
In March 2014, I had surgery.
What kind of surgery?
Interception.
What does that mean?
They took out like 2 feet of my colon.
And why was it that you were prescribed Suboxone in December for a surgery that you had in March of that year?
So when I was after surgery for about a month, I was on a lot of Dilaudid, and they had me on it for about a month, maybe a little bit longer, and detoxing from it was really hard, so they put me on Suboxone so I wouldn't use again.
So you wouldn't use what again?
Heroin.
So other than smoking marijuana and taking Suboxone that was prescribed for you, were you using any drugs when Mr. Chartrand was living with you?
No.
And you say he stayed for how long?
For about a month and a half.
And who is the next man who came to live with you at Bella?
Michael McCarthy.
When had you first met Michael McCarthy?
The year before.
When the year before?
I don't know exactly. It was the winter, I think, or it was cold out at least.
So when you say the winter of the year before, are you saying the winter that spanned 2014 into 2015, or a year before that?
The year before that. No, yeah, 2000. It was 2014.
Okay, so the winter that started in 2014 and went into 2015?
Excuse me, 2013 and 2014 was the winter, I think, that I met him.
Okay, so it was like a year before he moved in with you?
Yes,
roughly?
yes.
Where did you meet him?
Outside CVS in Harrison Ave.
Harrison Ave in Dorchester? Or is that Roxbury?
No, that's the Boston Medical Center.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
Right.
I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And you were outside. What were you doing at CVS?
I was filling my prescriptions.
And how did you meet him?
He happened to be outside while I was, I think, smoking a cigarette.
And who approached whom?
I think he just walked over and we started talking.
What did you talk about?
I don't remember exactly what we talked about. I remember that he wasn't, I think he didn't have his benzos or something, so I gave him a couple. He wasn't well.
So when you say benzos, what are you referring to?
Klonopin.
And is the chemical name for that benzodiazepine?
Yes.
So when you say benzos, you're referring to Klonopin?
Yes.
And you say that he asked you for some?
Or that he was sick off his, so Xanax is a benzodiazepine too. I didn't know that he was on that at the time, but he said he didn't have his benzos and he needed, and I had them.
So when you say he wasn't well, just so we're clear, what do you mean by that, specifically?
I don't understand what you mean.
It's ordinarily when people hear that somebody isn't well, it means they have a cold or the flu or something like that. Is that what you're talking about when you say he wasn't well?
No, he was sick from not having his benzos.
And so you gave him, do you recall how many you gave him?
I don't know, a couple.
You say you don't remember specifically what you talked about. Do you remember anything that you talked about?
Not really.
Was Bella with you at that time?
Yeah.
And was anybody with Mr. McCarthy?
His dog.
And what kind of dog did he have?
Pomeranian.
That's a small breed?
Yeah.
Did you at that time know the dog's name?
No. I might have. I didn't remember though.
Did you come to learn the dog's name?
After, yes.
And what was the dog's name?
Bailey.
Was there any interaction between either Bella and Mr. McCarthy at that time, or Bella and Bailey?
I think Bella liked the dog.
What made you think that?
She'd smile at it and wanted to play with it, but she was in her stroller, so.
Did you introduce yourselves to each other by name, I mean?
Who?
You and Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Did you exchange information, like contact information?
Yes.
What kind?
Phone numbers.
And do you see Michael McCarthy in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Can you please point him out and describe an article of his clothing?
Blue shirt.
May the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant, Michael McCarthy.
Yes.
After you met Michael McCarthy outside the pharmacy, how much time passed before you had contact with him again?
He had texted me like a year later.
A year later?
Yeah.
So you meet him outside the pharmacy, you exchange information, and neither of you hears from each other for a year?
No.
What did he text you?
He was out of his Lyrica and needed some gabapentin.
So a year later, he texts you to see if you have drugs?
Yes.
Okay. Did you respond?
Yes.
What did you tell him?
I told him that I did have some, but that I wasn't going to go out because the winter was really bad, and I couldn't push the stroller through it really, or carry her.
What kind of winter weather was bad?
Oh, it was snow and ice. It was a lot of snow that year.
Did he respond when you said that?
He said he'd come to the house.
Did he?
Yes.
How long did it take him to get there from the time that you exchanged the text messages?
I don't know exactly.
I mean, are we talking minutes, hours,
Oh,
days?
probably an hour or so.
Okay.
It was slow trains and everything because of the weather.
And was anybody living there with you at that time besides Bella?
No.
Do you remember what time of day it was when he came?
Maybe late afternoon.
And what happened when he got to your house?
We ended up talking, and I think we smoked a joint, smoked some cigarettes. I gave him some gabapentin.
Did he take the gabapentin that you gave him?
Yeah.
Right there?
Yeah.
Where was that in the order of events? In other words, you just said he came over, we talked, you smoked some, you gave him gabapentin. Is that the order that it happened?
I think right when he got there, he came in and we might have talked for a second, and then I gave him some.
And did he take it?
Yes.
Based on what you could see, did it seem to help him?
Yeah.
Did he have his dog with him?
Yes.
So you say that you got to talking.
Mm-hmm.
How long did he stay at your apartment that first time?
He ended up staying over.
He spent the night?
Yes.
And I hate to ask you this, but I'm going to need to ask you to keep your voice up nice and strong because it's starting to tail off, makes it hard to hear you. I don't mean to intrude, but that first night, when you say he stayed over, was that a romantic night?
No.
So where did he stay?
On the couch.
And where were you sleeping?
On my bed.
So he stayed over
Yes.
that night. How long did he stay after that?
He ended up staying until September.
Okay. So when was this that he texted you? You said it was the winter, and I got it was 2015, but when in 2015?
About February, end of February.
And so you're saying he came over one afternoon in the end of February and never left until September?
Right.
How'd that happen?
We just got to talking, and it was really bad out. He seemed like a nice person. He had nowhere to go, and I don't know. I let him stay. Just ended up staying from there.
When you say he seemed like a nice person, what do you mean by that?
He seemed friendly, helpful, smart.
You say smart?
Yeah.
What made you think he was smart?
He seemed to know things. He was just intelligent.
What kind of things did he seem to know?
exactly, I don't know how to explain that. You just seemed intelligent, you know, in conversation.
But it seemed like when you answered that question that you had something in mind, even if it wasn't something terribly specific.
What the question is there a question, did you have something in particular in mind? Is that the
Right,
question?
when you said he seemed to know things,
Oh,
can you recall even types of things that he seemed to know?
so like astrology stuff, and you know, he said he knew Reiki and stuff like that.
When you say he knew about astrology, I think I know what you're talking about. Probably the jury knows what you're talking about, but can you be more specific?
Okay, so I just reminded you, the questions asked of the witnesses are not evidence, it's the answers that the witnesses give.
What do you mean when you use the word astrology?
So he had a friend online that did astrology classes, and he seemed to know a lot about it.
But when you say astrology, what are you talking about? Just so that we're all on the same page.
Oh, like your signs, like date of birth, and you know your astrological signs.
Is astrology something that you were interested in before you met Mr. McCarthy or not?
Yeah, to some extent.
You said that he also knew Reiki.
Reiki.
What did you understand that to be?
Well, I didn't know the name of it. I didn't even really know what it was. He explained it to me, so I knew it was something like, you know, that like Asians did. It's like the chakra points in your body and stuff that it's an energy cleanser, basically.
An energy what?
It's an energy cleanser, basically.
An energy what?
Cleanser in your body, like in the healing process.
Did you know anything about it before you met the defendant?
Not really. I've heard about it, but didn't really know anything about it.
So he explained it to you?
Yeah.
Do you recall how he explained it to you?
He just explained that, like, it's the rainbow that goes up your spine and into your brain. It's colors. It starts with red and ends with violet. The actual rainbow, and it's like a meditation thing too.
Did he?
They're energy points in your body, I guess.
Did he ever demonstrate it to you as he was explaining it to you? Did he ever demonstrate it?
Like maybe a few days later, a week later, maybe. Yeah.
Did he, aside from astrology and Reiki, did he talk to you about any other interests that he had?
Meditation a lot. He was into meditating.
And I apologize, I'm going to go back at one point and just ask you, do you remember the name? You said that he had someone online that did astrology that he was interested in. Do you remember that individual's name?
Santos, I think was the name.
Santos?
Yeah.
And aside from, so you said he was interested in astrology, Reiki, meditation. Is there anything else you remember at the beginning when you were getting to know him that he was interested in?
He was big on conspiracy theories.
What type of conspiracy theories?
Like the government was a conspiracy, and
I object to this point. I'd like to be heard at sidebar.
Okay, counsel sidebar.
sorry, you said he was interested in conspiracy theories?
Yes.
What kind?
That the government put out programming with like evil signs in all their programs, and that, you know, the government was brainwashing everyone and they were evil.
Was this something that you found interesting or not?
I mean, I guess to some extent, but not as much as he was into it.
But you found it interesting, at least to some extent.
I mean, it seemed, I mean, that and he had all this stuff online about it that made it very matter of fact. It seemed quite plausible.
So he showed you, what did he show you online about conspiracy theories?
Well, Santos had a little conspiracy theory thing too, and like Alex Jones, I think it was a news, like, internet newscast thing, and he had a lot of conspiracy theory stuff.
At some point, as you were getting to know him, did he comment to you at all about the spirit world, evil spirits, anything like that?
Yeah, yes.
And how soon or long after he came did he comment to you about the spirit world?
Not long. You know, he talks about like, you know, the spiritual side of things and negative energies and stuff, and I told him I always felt like there was like negative energy that followed me, you know, because a lot of things happened wrong in my life. And
you told him that you felt that there was negative
Yeah.
energy surrounding you?
yes, to some, and he said, because he had mentioned that he felt it or whatever, and I said, yeah, like I felt like that too. And so he said he knew how to sage houses and that he would do that for me.
He told you that he felt negative energy around you?
Yeah.
Did he tell you that he perceived negative energy in any way other than feeling?
He had visions or whatever.
Of what?
I can't even explain it. It's like off the wall things that didn't really make sense to me.
But you said he talked to you about saging houses?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
That when he could sage a house to get rid of the like negative energies, which I had heard of before.
You had heard of it before?
Yes, it's not anything I hadn't heard of.
Is it something that you believed before he talked to you about it?
Yeah.
And he told you that he could do it?
Yes.
Did he do it?
Yes.
Were you there when he did it?
Yes.
What did he do?
So there's like these sage plants or leaves, and he just lit it and like walked from each room and closet and, you know, was like, let all the bad energy out of the house or whatever. I don't know exactly what he was saying, but that was how he did it.
And did it make an odor or smell?
Yeah.
What did it smell like?
An herb, I don't know how to explain it.
And did you perceive any, other than the smell, the change in what he did you perceive any change in the energy of the home?
I don't know.
Change in the energy of the home?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how fast that stuff's supposed to work, or if it does. I don't really think right away, no.
Did you, you said that he explained Reiki to you. Did he ever demonstrate it for you?
Yes.
And when was that?
Maybe a few days later. My stomach had been hurting from the surgery. It was inflamed and hot and in the spot where my colon was taken out. And he said that Reiki fixed things like that, and he knew how to do it. So he asked if he could, you know, do Reiki on me, and I let him.
What did he do?
So, like I was saying, the colors of your energy points, I guess, in your body. This is like, so your stomach is like a yellow, I guess, in the rainbow. And he had me lay down on my back, and he like warmed his hands and put them, didn't touch me, but put them above my stomach, and told me to close my eyes and, you know, just think of the color yellow, and deep breathing in your nose, out your mouth, and that it would heal.
And how long did he do that for?
Maybe 5 minutes, maybe.
Did you notice any change in your symptoms? Your pain?
Yes, within like an hour or so, the pain actually subsided.
Did it go away completely?
Yeah.
And what, if anything, did you conclude about Reiki and the defendant's use of it after you saw the subsiding of your symptoms?
Then I somewhat believed it worked.
In the first, at some point did your relationship change from being, I don't know how you describe that relationship, but roommates, for lack of a better term, or apartment mates, to something romantic?
Like a few weeks, maybe a month.
And over that first few weeks or a month or so, if you were asked to describe your impressions of the defendant over those first few weeks or a month, how would you describe him? Somebody asks you, what's he like?
He seemed helpful and kind of like a goofball. Yeah.
A goofball?
Yeah, kind of.
Why do you say goofball?
He just kind of looks like at the time looked like one. Kind of like Goofy.
Did he have? You said you had friends that would sometimes come and stay. Did he have any friends who came and stayed with you early on in that time?
Michael Sprinsky.
And is that somebody that you knew before?
No.
So you
I met him through
the defendant. And did you get to know Mr. Sprinsky?
Somewhat, yeah. Yes.
Why do you say somewhat?
It was more his friend, and I thought with my daughter more.
How long after the defendant came to stay with you did Mr. Sprinsky come to stay with you?
I think it was a few days.
And how long did Mr. Sprinsky stay?
A couple weeks.
Could you tell at the time whether Mr. Sprinsky had substance abuse issues?
Yes.
How did you know that?
Before he even came, when he was on his way, he was, I think, dope sick and trying to get some.
When you say dope sick, what does that mean? No, that's okay, but what does it mean?
Sick from not having heroin.
When he stayed with you, Mr. Sprinsky, where did he stay? Like at nighttime, where would he sleep?
On the couch.
Did he ever sleep in the back bedroom?
Yeah, he had.
When the defendant came to stay with you, started staying with you, did he interact with Bella?
A little bit.
And what do you mean a little bit?
He was usually on his phone, but he would. She had like this bowling set I had bought her, and he'd like set up the pins, and she'd use the bowling balls to roll, to knock them down, and then he'd just set them back up again. And sometimes I had these leaves that hung from the ceiling that she really liked from Halloween, and he'd pick her up, and because she loved to be picked up, and she'd hit everyone till they spun. And so if I had picked her up 1,000 times and just didn't want to do it again, she'd go to him and try it. And sometimes he'd do it.
He was able to pick her up?
Yes.
Did he use one hand or two hands to pick her up?
An arm.
Okay. Did he play with her in any ways other than those ways that you just described?
Not really. They'd I guess, talk a little bit and she'd run by him. She was always really next to me.
Was he good with her, kind to her? Initially?
He seemed it initially, yes.
Was there anything in their interactions initially that you saw that concerned you, that made you worry for her?
No, not at first, no.
You said that the defendant initially slept on the couch when he was staying with you. When your relationship became an intimate one, where did he sleep?
On my bed.
And where was Bella sleeping at that time?
So she had, she moved a lot when she slept, so I had to till I graduated her to her bed. She would always fall out of the bed, so I put her in like a playpen
And where was the playpen?
next to my bed.
Okay, so in your room as well?
Mhm.
So, I'm sorry, you need to say yes or no. So
Yeah,
the
I'm sorry,
transcript.
yes.
And so the three of you would sleep in the same room, after your relationship with the defendant became intimate, the three of you would stay in the same room?
Yes.
Who was responsible for correcting Bella if she misbehaved or disciplining her if she needed it?
If she was doing something wrong, I'd just tell her, you can't do that, but she was still very young to discipline.
Was the defendant involved in disciplining her at all?
Nobody would complain that I didn't discipline her.
Even early on, in that initial phase?
Maybe not the first, month or so, but after that, yeah.
And what was he complaining about when he complained that you didn't discipline her enough?
I'd just pretty much let her do anything, and, I'd always pick her up even when my stomach was hurting, and I didn't really reprimand her for anything if it wasn't going to hurt her, and he thought that I needed to discipline her more than that.
How did he let you know that?
He told me.
What did he say?
He said, you need to discipline her more. You need to stop letting her be on top of you all the time and picking her up all the time and just letting her do whatever.
What did you make of that?
I mean, it's whatever. I raise my kid the way I want him,
Well, I understand, but I guess I'm asking you, how did you feel when he said those things to you?
No objection.
I sustain.
What was your state of mind when he said those things to you?
Objection.
I'm failing to see how that's relevant. That's why I sustain the objection.
Did you change your behavior based on his complaints?
No, not really.
You said a moment ago that he spent a lot of time on his phone.
Yes.
What would he do on his phone?
I don't know. I wasn't on his phone.
But I mean,
On the internet, I would assume.
what did it look to
texting.
you like he was doing?
A lot of just on the internet or texting, friends.
Did you ever see or hear things he was looking at on the internet?
Sometimes he'd show me this Santos has astrology classes or a program that he puts out on the internet, and I was interested in that, so I'd watch that sometimes. Yes.
Was he working at that time?
No.
Did he ever work while he was staying with you?
A few times for his father, maybe.
When you say a few times, from the time he came in late February until September, how many times would you say that he worked for his father?
Maybe 2 or 3. I'm not exactly sure.
Was he? Did he exercise? By that I mean, sort of working out, running or swimming or lifting weights or anything.
No.
When he was with you, did you exercise during that time?
No, but I walked a lot. I was in good shape.
But aside from walking, did you do any sort of calisthenics, any weightlifting, running, anything like that?
No.
Were there any weights in your home?
No.
After Mr. Sprinsky, you said he stayed for a couple of weeks, Mr. Sprinsky?
2 or 3 weeks. I wasn't exactly timing it. I'm a stay-at-home mother, so times aren't really.
Understood. But so somewhere in the 2 to 3 week range,
Yes.
Mr. Sprinsky stayed there not long after the defendant came?
Yes.
And then he left?
Yes.
After he left, after the 2 or 3 weeks, did you see him again?
Occasionally he'd come by for a night.
And when he would come back for a night, would you know he was coming?
A couple times he just knocked, on the bedroom window, and a couple times he called, I guess, his phone.
And when he stayed with you, did he interact with Bella?
Yeah, he played with Bella. He was good with Bella.
What kinds of things did he do with Bella?
He would always pick her up to hit the things on the ceiling, the leaves that hung from the ceiling, and sometimes she'd bring him books to read. He was more interactive.
And did you ever see anything in Mr. Sprinsky's interaction with Bella that concerned you for Bella's welfare or safety?
No.
Did you get to know any... Did you get to know any of the members of the defendant's family?
His father and brother.
And how did you get to know them?
His brother would come over once in a while. Easter dinner. He brought us out for Easter dinner.
Is that the first time that you met his father at Easter dinner?
Yes, I believe so.
Do you know when the defendant started staying with you, do you know whether he would see his father regularly?
I don't remember him seeing him regularly, but sometimes on Sundays he'd go to church with him.
And did the defendant ever talk to you about going to church with his father on Sundays?
He hated it.
He told you that?
Yeah.
Do you remember specifically what he said?
He didn't believe in the Catholic Church. He thought there was somewhere in somewhere in the Bible or something that it says that he believed priests always raped kids and it was to keep them in line, and that was his concept of the church.
Did he tell you why, if he hated going to church with his father, that he went?
So I guess he had lost his father's trust in using and stealing and stuff, and he was just trying to gain it back.
You said that his brother Joe came over. Was that the first time that you met his brother Joe? Was that before or after Easter?
I think it was before, yeah.
Do you recall? What he came over for that first time?
I think he couldn't get heroin, and his brother could.
Do you remember anything about a car seat?
Yeah, he brought a car seat over for Easter.
And was that the first time he came over, or had he already come over before that?
I think he came over a time or two before that. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I think he did.
And what was the car? Why did he bring a car seat?
Because when we were going to go to Easter dinner, I had left my car seat in Megan's car, and we needed one for his father's car.
And did you have a car yourself? When's the last time that you owned a car?
2004, I think.
So the defendant's brother. What's the defendant's brother's name?
Joseph McCarthy Jr.
Oh, so he has the same name as his father.
Yes.
And he brought over the car seat to your apartment?
Yes.
And do you recall how long before Easter dinner that was?
Maybe a week. I'm not sure exactly when, but it was a little bit of time before.
You said also that at around the same time, I gather, that Joe McCarthy Jr. came over, the defendant's brother came over because he couldn't get heroin. Is that correct?
Yes.
How do you know that?
He would tell me.
How often did Joe McCarthy Jr. come over from the time his brother moved in?
At first it was only a couple times before Easter or so, and then or maybe it was during April at some point, right before Easter. It was a couple times a week. I'm not exactly sure, but he ended up coming a little bit more often for a few weeks because he couldn't get a hold of anybody to get heroin. And then after it dwindled.
Do you know why it dwindled?
I think he got in the methadone clinic.
Do you know whether there was an event in his life that might have dwindled the number of visits?
Oh yeah, his son.
When Joe McCarthy Jr. came over to get heroin, did the defendant ever use the heroin?
A couple of times, yes.
Did you ever use the heroin?
Yes, a couple of times.
With Bella in the apartment?
Yes.
And when you did that, who was looking after Bella?
So Joe would go in the bathroom and do his or whatever, or he'd wait and then play with Bella, and then Mike would go in, and then I'd go in after that.
So
Separate times.
So how frequently after well, let me ask you this. Before the defendant came to live with you, in the months between when, and I'm sorry, I think it was Mr. Chartrand, you said left, and then before the defendant came, is that correct?
Keith Chartrand left January.
Right. So in the time between when Mr. Chartrand left and when the defendant came, how frequently were you using heroin?
No, I didn't use it at all.
And when did you start using heroin again?
when Sprinsky came over one of those times.
And it was, when you say when Sprinsky came over, what did it have to do with Sprinsky coming over that you started using heroin?
He brought it with him and asked Mike if he wanted some, and then asked me if I did. And I said yes.
Was the defendant, during the time that he stayed with you, did the defendant use drugs?
He was in the clinic, the methadone clinic.
And what's involved in being in the methadone clinic?
You go in and get your dose, and you leave.
Okay. How frequently do you go to the methadone clinic to get a dose?
You're supposed to go every day.
And what happens if you don't go every day?
You don't feel well.
And is there a penalty if you don't go enough?
I think it's like a succession of days. If you don't go, you get dropped down.
Dropped?
Drop down your dose. Like, so if you're like at 70 milligrams or something, and you don't go for 4 days or 3 or 4 days, you get dropped down like 5 milligrams each time.
And does there come a point when you can't go at all anymore?
I'm not sure because it hasn't happened.
Have you ever gone to a methadone clinic?
Yes.
At the time that the defendant was staying with you, did you go to a methadone clinic?
No.
Did you take any sort of treatment to help you try to stay off the heroin?
Because I had the surgery, I was on Suboxone.
The Suboxone, is it designed to try to help you stay off heroin?
Yes. It has a blocker in it, so you can't really get high off heroin.
And how long after the defendant came to stay with you in your apartment did you start using heroin?
It was probably a couple weeks I used the first time.
While the defendant was living with you, what drugs did he use? Besides, I know he went to the methadone clinic. What other drugs did he use?
That were prescribed or?
Well, I'm interested in ones that were not prescribed for him, even if they're prescription, the things that were not prescribed for him.
He would take my Klonopin and gabapentin a lot.
How did he get them?
I'd leave them in my purse. Half the time he'd be like, I don't want to be sick, and just take them.
And did he take any other sort of, well, actually, let me ask you, what was he taking by prescription for him?
Xanax and Lyrica, and there was I don't know, there was like 2 or 3 other ones for whatever, just, I don't know what sort or whatever, but those ones he didn't take.
Okay. And you said he was in the methadone clinic, that involves a prescription, right?
Yes, that's a prescription.
When you said that when Sprinsky came over and he had heroin, you used it.
Yes.
Did the defendant use it at that time too?
Yes.
You've also described times when his brother would come over and use heroin. Did you use it at those times too?
A couple of times, yes.
Did the defendant use them as well?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the term China White?
Yes.
What is that?
It's just a type of heroin.
What type of heroin?
A stronger opiate.
Are you familiar with the term pins?
Yes.
What are they in street term pins? What does that mean?
Clonazepam.
Are you familiar with it? Well, does the defendant use the term floats?
Yes.
And are you familiar with what he means when he uses the term floats?
His Lyrica.
And does he use the term footballs?
Yes.
And what is he referring to when he uses the terms football?
His Xanax.
I object, unless we're talking about a specific time when these things were used or not.
What, do you want to put this into a time frame as to when these words came up?
Respectfully, they appear throughout
Well,
the text record.
I take it it's during the time.
I'm laying it out, right. It's all addressed at the time when they're living together.
Okay. Overruled.
When the defendant moved into your home, did you have cable television?
Yes.
And did you continue to have cable television throughout the time that he was living in your home?
Not the whole time, no.
Why not?
Well, because it was like crazy conspiracy theories and stuff. He had convinced me that like the television was basically bad, like a brainwashing type thing. And I mean, he's very convincing, and he convinced me. And I had a lot of, movies for Bella, and I really didn't even watch the TV. It was more for her. I had a lot of Blue's Clues and like just Disney movies that I had already had on DVD for her, and a lot of recorded stuff. So it didn't take away from her watching it.
So what did you do what did you do about cable television?
I just stopped paying it.
Do you remember when that was?
I want to say April.
Did you have a cell phone, like a smartphone, when the defendant moved in with you?
Yes.
And do you recall the phone number of that cell phone?
I think it was 857-266-6250.
So, could you repeat that?
857-266-6250.
And did you use your phone fairly frequently when you had it?
Yes.
What did you use it for?
I took pictures of Bella a lot, video of her, and friends to talk, when I talk to friends on Facebook.
You used your phone to access Facebook?
Yeah, and text friends.
And at some point, did you give up your cell phone?
Yes.
When was that?
I think it was probably mid-April.
Why did you give it up?
Basically to save money. I wasn't really selling my Klonopins anymore to help with money, and because he was taking really selling my Klonopins anymore to help with money, and because he was taking them, so he would say you could just use. He convinced me that we'd just use his phone.
So whose idea was it for you to give up your phone?
His. It would save money if we only paid for one phone, and that I could use his whenever. That's what I was told.
Before Bella died, how would you describe your life in the apartment with the defendant and Bella?
Objection.
Overruled.
I was always, as far as me and Bella are concerned.
As far as the three of you?
At first he was, more playful with Bella and attentive, and then after a while it was kind of distant. Not me and Bella, but him and Bella.
And did your use of drugs, heroin, in the apartment when Bella was there, did your return to using drugs affect your ability to be a mother to her?
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't treat her any differently.
When you would use heroin, wouldn't there be a period of time when you were unable to parent at all?
I was on Suboxone, so like I said, it has like a blocker in it. So I really wouldn't get high on the heroin.
Then why take it?
I don't know. I'm an addict. I thought maybe I could get high. And it was there and given.
I'm going to ask you to go back in your mind to the day that Bella was killed. First thing I want to ask you is, what was the date that she died?
It was the beginning of June. I'm not exactly sure.
What do you mean you're not exactly sure?
Like I said, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Unless I have an appointment, I'm not really, that goes off on my calendar on the phone. Every day's the same.
But after it happened, wasn't the date marked in your mind? How could you forget the date?
Because I didn't know it the day that it happened. I wasn't aware of the date. It was the beginning of June.
Do you recall anything in particular that happened that day? Before the events I'm about to ask you about?
No. Nothing unusual.
Who was home that day?
Me and Michael McCarthy.
And who else?
And Bella.
And what time of day or night was it that events unfolded that led to her death?
It was late at night because she didn't want to go to bed, so it was probably like 11:30.
Where was her bed at that time?
I was trying to get her into her bedroom, so it was in her bedroom.
And which bedroom was hers?
In the back of the house.
And when you say you were trying to get her in the bedroom, is that something you just started that day, or had you been doing?
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
The past maybe 4 days, 3 days, something like that.
And why were you trying to get her to go sleep in her bedroom?
She was about to be 3. It's about her time to have her own room.
And what were you doing to try, over those 4 days or so, to try to get her to go to her own room?
I just bring her in there. I put the mattress on the floor because she always fell off the bed, so I didn't have it on the frame. I go in there, read her book, whatever, lay with her.
Was there any sort of was there any kind of bedtime routine, or was it different each night?
It was different all the time.
And what would happen over those 4 days when you would try to get her to go to bed in her own room?
She would always get up. She usually slept near me, so it was a hard transition.
And there's actually something I meant to ask you about. I'm going to go back to for 1 second, but in this context, you had mentioned that the defendant told you that you should be stricter with Bella. Is that right? You have to say yes or no.
I'm sorry, yes.
Did the defendant ever discipline Bella himself?
He put her in the closet once, yes.
One time?
Yes.
When was that?
I want to say, I don't know, a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks after he was there.
And what happened? What caused him to put her in the closet?
So I'm not exactly sure. I think I was in the bathroom, and when I came out, I heard her, yelling, screaming, whatever, and he was outside of the closet door in my bedroom.
And was anybody else in the apartment that day?
I think Sprinsky was there.
And
Michael Sprinsky.
what happened when you heard her crying or screaming?
I ran back there.
You said you found him outside the closet door?
Yes.
What happened at that time?
I asked her what he had done, why he had done that.
What did he say?
He said she was being fresh.
And what did you do, if anything?
I tried to get her out of the closet.
What happened?
There's between my bed and the closet. Between the bed and the closet, there's like a very small space at the end of my bed, and the door's open this way, so he wouldn't let me in that space to get by to open the closet.
How long did she spend in the closet?
Not long. Not long.
How was she ultimately able to get out of the closet?
There's like a bag that I had hung there, so she wouldn't, because she would always go in there, so there's like a bag I had hung over there, because the closet opened to both sides with 2 handles with no lock or anything, and so it would just pop open, so I put the bag over so she wouldn't get in the closet, and that was wrapped over it, and I pulled it off.
Did Mr. Sprinsky do anything?
Not that I remember.
So, taking you back to that 4-day period when you were trying to get Bella to stay in her room, was it only you over those 4 days who was trying to get her to acclimate to sleeping in her own room?
Yeah, basically.
Did the defendant take any part in it?
No, not when she was in the back room.
And you said that you would take her into her room. What would happen when you took her into your room over those 4 days? Walk us through it.
Oh, usually she'd just get up and run back out, and I'd have to bring her back in, and she'd run back out again. This is something she did all the time, so to me it was normal,
How many times a night would she do that?
Probably until I actually laid with her, and I used to rub her face.
And what would happen when you lay down with her?
Eventually she'd go to sleep.
Did the defendant ever get involved in that, like take her back into her room and try to get her to sleep?
He's come in there with me, like when I'd be in there, he'd like come and look, like if she wanted to sleep or whatever.
Did you, were you making progress over the 4 days, or was it the same every day?
It had been the same her whole life, kind of. She didn't like going to sleep without me, so.
Was it frustrating to you when she'd keep getting up?
It was when she was littler, but I got used to it. It was more frustrating to him. He'd get more upset about it than I would.
And when you say he got upset about it, what do you mean?
He would tell me that she needed like a time to go to bed, but get up whenever.
And the night that we're talking about, you said it was late, like 11:30 or so?
Yeah.
describe what happened. Well, let me ask you this. Start with, as best you can remember, trying to put her to bed.
So I went in and, laid her down and tried to get her to go to sleep. I think I read her a book or something. She loved books. And I left. And I heard her, she came out, went back in, came out, went back. So
When you say went back in, did she go back in on her own?
Oh, no, I'd bring her in. I'd bring her back in. I'm like, no, it's time to go to bed, And I'd bring her back in, and I did it like 2 or 3 times.
And she kept coming out?
Yeah.
What happened after the second or third time?
We heard her playing around in there, and like the door creaked. So she was like, in the dark playing. So he was like, let me go tell her to lay down. I'll go tell her.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what he said. What did he say?
So he said, I'll go tell her to lay down.
And how did you respond to that?
Okay.
And why was that okay with you?
I didn't think he'd hurt her.
Did you have any concern about letting him go in to tell her to lay down?
No, I thought it would be all right.
And so how did you said okay?
Yeah.
What did he do?
He went and back,
And where were you when he went and back?
so we were watching a movie, I think, a movie on DVD, whatever. So I was on the couch.
In the living room area?
Yes, in the room.
And did you see him go back to the bedroom?
Yeah.
When he went back there, was the door open or closed at that time?
When he went in?
Yes.
He left it open a little bit.
But before he went in, did he have to open the door or was it already open?
No, I think it was just cracked.
And so he went in and left the door open behind him?
Yeah, like that.
What were you doing as he was in there?
I was just watching the movie.
Could you hear what was going on in the bedroom?
I didn't hear anything.
How much time passed with that situation where you were watching a movie and you didn't hear anything from the bedroom?
Within 5 minutes, maybe?
What happened within 5 minutes?
As in?
Well, you say, I asked you, how long did that stay like that with you watching a movie and him in the back bedroom? You said within 5 minutes. At the end of 5 minutes, what happened?
I walked in there.
Why?
Because I was just, wondering if everything was all right. If she was going to sleep, basically.
Were you worried at all at that point?
Not at that point, no.
And as you approached, could you see at all into the room through the cracked door as you approached the bedroom?
When you walk down there, it's like a little bit of a hallway, and her door is right at the end. So you kind of got to get up to the door to see in.
But could you see it, for example, if the light was on or off?
The light was on.
On?
Yes.
And what did you do?
So I walked up to the door and I cracked it. Oh, I stepped in.
And what did you see when you stepped in?
He punched her in the stomach.
Where was she?
Laying on the bed.
And when you say laying on the bed, what part of her body was on the bed? Her front, her side, or her back?
She was on her back.
Was she on the bed sort of the way you would expect somebody to be on their bed and on their back?
No, the bed was like this, and she was laying like this.
She was laying across the bed? Is that right? And were her feet pointed to you, or her head pointed to you, or were you seeing her side?
Her feet were towards me.
And you said that as you came in, what was his position with respect to her, his physical position?
He was at her feet.
Was he standing up straight?
No.
How was he positioned?
He was on one knee.
And you said that he punched her in the stomach?
Yes.
With his fist?
Yeah.
How would you describe the force of that blow?
I don't know. I just saw her bounce off the bed.
What do you mean when you say bounce off the bed? Did she actually come off the bed?
Yeah, she bounced.
But did she bounce up and then come back down on the bed, or actually bounce off the bed?
No, she bounced up and came back down.
Her whole body? Did she react to other than her body bouncing, did she react to the punch at all?
No.
What did you do?
So I think I yelled, what did you do? And
Is that exactly what you yelled?
what the fuck did you do?
And did he respond to you?
And he just kind of looked at me,
How?
like, whatever.
What did you do after you asked that?
I grabbed her, and she wasn't breathing, so I tried to do CPR.
Are you trained in CPR?
I had done it when I was in high school, yes.
Had you been recertified recently, or was it something you learned a long time ago?
No, it was something I learned a long time ago.
And describe what you did to do CPR.
So I breathed in her mouth 3 times, held her nose, and then did 3 chest compressions, and then breathed in her mouth 3 times, back and forth.
How did she look to you when you went over to her to do CPR?
Her head was swollen and gray.
Gray? As you were doing, how long did you do CPR for?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Did you see any sign that it was working?
No.
You said that her head appeared to you to be swollen and her face was gray. Did you see any injury to her that you could see?
No.
Was there any blood?
No.
None?
No.
What was the defendant doing while you were doing CPR?
I wasn't looking at him.
When you stopped doing CPR, what did you do?
So I picked her up to get out of there, and he grabbed me by the throat, and he told me he'd kill me.
Where were you when he grabbed you by the throat?
I was on the bed. I was standing up, going to stand up.
And what happened to Bella when he did that, Bella?
Fell out of my arms.
And what did he say to you? You said he grabbed your throat. Was that with one hand or 2 hands?
Both.
What did he say to you?
He said he'd kill me.
That's it, I'll kill you?
Yes.
Did you say anything to him?
I couldn't after that.
Let me ask you something. When you first saw her, and you saw her head appeared to be swollen and she was gray, did you cry out?
I yelled, "What the fuck did you do?"
But after that, did you scream, "Help me, somebody call an ambulance, help me"?
No,
Why not?
I just tried CPR. I was hoping it would work, and then I'd get her out.
When he put his hands on your neck and said he'd kill you, what's the next thing that happened?
I blacked out.
Do you know how long you were blacked out for?
I don't.
When you came to, where were you?
On the couch.
In the living room?
In the living room.
How'd you get there?
He moved me.
How do you know that?
Because there's nobody else there that could have moved me.
How did you feel when you woke up on the couch?
Dizzy. I didn't feel well. I had to go to. I didn't feel good.
What do you mean when you say you didn't feel good?
My throat hurt. I felt sick.
When you say sick, what kind of sick do you mean?
I think I was suboxone sick because I hadn't had any since that morning.
What did you do?
I went to go to the bathroom.
Where was the defendant, if you know?
I think he was in the kitchen. That's where he was when I went to the bathroom.
Did you use the bathroom?
Yes.
How long were you in the bathroom?
I peed and left at a minute.
When you left the bathroom, what did you do?
He followed me back to the couch.
So you went back to the couch?
Yes.
And he followed you?
Yes.
Did you talk?
No, I don't remember saying anything.
As you left the bathroom, did you think about running out of the apartment? Just running as fast as you could?
He was right there. I was scared.
What were you scared of?
Him.
So you went back to the couch?
Yes.
What happened when you got back to the couch?
I passed back out.
On your own?
Yes.
And out at that time?
I don't know.
What happened when you came to?
He was waking me up,
How?
pushing on me,
Pushing on you where?
like my side.
And I gather you did wake up.
Yes.
What happened when you woke up?
He tossed shoes down next to me, and he gave me a shot of heroin.
Where did he injected you with heroin?
Yes.
Where?
My throat, my neck.
In your neck?
Excuse me.
Is that something that he forced on you? In other words, did he overpower you to do that?
No, I was sick and, no.
And he threw shoes down next to you?
Yes.
When he did that, how much time had passed since Bella was killed?
I don't know.
When you say you don't know, I understand you may not have had a stopwatch on to do it, but are we talking minutes, hours, more?
I don't want to say it was like the next night.
So a full
Day.
24 hours or close to it passed?
Yeah.
How could that be? How were you unable to know?
I was very sick and very just out of it. He
At the-
killed my child out. I wasn't well.
At that point, when he threw the shoes down, had you and he had any discussion of what happened in the bedroom other than him saying he would kill you? Had you exchanged any words?
When I said, I said, what the fuck did you do? You fucking killed her. And he said, no, it was her time to die. She was a demon.
He said that?
Yes.
Other than that, had you had any conversation with him between the time that she was killed and the time that he threw the shoes down?
No.
When he injected you in the neck with heroin, I just want to be clear on this, is that something that was, well, he didn't force you, he didn't forcibly inject you with heroin.
No.
How did you feel about getting a shot of heroin in the neck at that time?
I was really sick from not having my Suboxone, and as bad as it sounds, I kind of wanted to feel better and not think.
So how did you feel about getting a shot of heroin in the neck at that time?
It was whatever, fine.
Were you, in fact, did you welcome it?
Yeah, to some extent, yes.
What happened after he threw the shoes down at your feet?
He said, let's go.
Did you know where you were going?
No.
Did you know where Bella was?
No.
Did you have any idea where Bella might be at that time?
No, not at that time, no.
Had anything occurred that led you to speculate about where Bella might be at that time?
Not at that time. Not at that time, no.
Objection.
Okay, the answer's no.
I'm sorry.
When he said, let's go, did he do anything else? He threw the shoes to you and said, let's go. What happened next?
So I got up and he had me by the arm and he brought me outside.
Where to?
His car was there,
Where was it?
in front,
Was it day or night?
night, it was dark.
Do you know what time?
I don't know, it was really dark out. I mean, it was dark out.
Could you tell by traffic or anything else?
There was no traffic.
What happened when he took you out to the car?
So he opened the door for me to get in, and he went around to get in the front, and when I looked in the back, I saw my green duffel bag, and my dear thighs are wet, like,
it was her in there. And I screamed something, I don't even know what it was, and then he hit me. And
Where did he hit you?
head,
Are you indicating the side of your head?
yes,
Where on the side of your head?
like about here.
Do you know what he hit you with?
I don't know, his hand, he had a hammer in there for me too, I don't know.
But you don't know what he hit you with?
I think his hand,
You say that you saw your duffel bag in the back seat.
yes,
What color duffel bag was that?
it was green,
What did you use it for?
laundry.
Where did you do laundry in your apartment building, or did you have to go to a laundromat?
No, downstairs in the basement there was machines.
How long had you had that duffel bag?
Before I moved there,
How long?
it's not long after I had Bella, I had it.
When you got in the car and saw the duffel bag and the contour of Bella's hip, what you thought was Bella's hip, did you see anything else in the area of the duffel bag?
On the back seat form behind his seat was weights.
Had you ever seen those weights before?
No,
What did they look like?
they look like old free weights.
What made you say they looked old?
The new ones are like coated, and the old, they just looked old and rusty. They didn't.
After he hit you, did you lose consciousness or not?
Yes,
Completely or partially?
no, I did.
And when you came to consciousness, where were you?
I didn't know where we were exactly. Parked somewhere, and it was like a building. And I remember like floodlights.
And did you recognize the area where you were as you looked around?
No,
When you came to consciousness, where was the defendant?
he was not in the car.
Did you know where he was?
Not at that time, no.
Was the bag still in the back seat?
No.
What did you do?
No. Maybe 30 seconds later, he got back in the car, so he was already heading back.
Did you see where he was heading back from?
It was the left of me.
And could you see what was in that direction to the left of you?
Not really, but it was like, like those pylons that are next to like a wharf or something, like that kind of, in like I don't know, like a parking lot or an area, just an open area.
You said it's pylons like you'd see at a wharf. Was there water there?
Yes, yes,
And that was to the left of you?
yes.
Could you see anything besides the sort of parking area, and was the water in the same direction as the parking area?
Yes, we were like in the middle of it, I guess. I don't.
Could you see anything beside the water?
No, I didn't really.
What about what was on the other side of the water?
I don't remember.
When he got back in the car, did he have, well, let me ask you, you said the bag was no longer there. Were the weights there?
No.
And when he got back in the car, did he say anything to you?
No.
Did you say anything to him?
I had nothing to say. I was shocked.
What happened next?
He drove back to the apartment.
And as you left that area, were you able to see anything that told you where you were?
I recognized the sort of coming from like behind the building. There was like a little like narrow path, road, whatever it was. I don't know. And I remember seeing like a building. It was like a mark exchange spot or whatever they call it, office. I don't know what it was. As we came out, I recognized the area.
How did you recognize the area?
Because when Bella was little, excuse me, I took the wrong 10 bus, and I meant to take it to Copley from Andrew when I took it to City Point. And at the bottom, so if you walk up that hill, that's where that building is, and at the bottom, at the corner next to the beach, that's the last stop. And I remember being stranded there because I took the wrong bus, and the lady told me I couldn't stay on the bus because she had to transfer the bus to another driver. And so when I walked up that road, I recognized the building from walking past it with her.
How long did it take you to get back home from there?
I have no idea.
I mean, are we talking minutes, hours?
No, not hours.
What happened when you got home?
They followed me back inside and just laid in my bed.
Did you have your cell phone with you when you went, when he drove you in the car to the City Point area?
I didn't have a cell phone. I had it, but it wasn't on, so no.
Did you mean it didn't have service?
Right.
Did he have his cell phone with him, if you know?
I have no idea.
When you got home, did you consider making a run for it, just taking off and knocking on neighbors' doors and saying what had happened to your daughter?
I mean, he was right there next to me. I felt pretty trapped.
So you lay down in the bed?
Yes.
Did he go to sleep too?
I don't know about go to sleep, but he laid down right next to me.
Did you sleep?
I don't remember sleeping.
At some point the next morning when it was light out, did you wake up or get up?
Yes.
And did he get up?
Yes.
Did you say anything to him?
You know, you killed my kid.
And how did he respond when he said that?
Same thing he said before. Like, she was a demon. It's her time to die.
Had you ever seen anything in his behavior before that that led you to think that he wanted to kill your daughter?
No, I mean, he was just on me about disciplining her. That's about it.
What did you do first thing when you got out of bed the next morning?
He brought me to the clinic with him. He made me go to the clinic with him.
So,
Mr. Deacon, I just want to figure out an appropriate point to stop.
good stuff. This is as reasonable a time to stop as any, right?
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Okay, we'll break for the weekend. I'm going to have the witness stay in the witness stand. Just remind the jury not to talk about this case. Becomes very tempting once you've heard some testimony, but don't talk about what you've heard in this courtroom. Also, don't do any independent investigation of the law or the facts, as we've already discussed, and I've given you the reasons for that. Do refrain from listening to any media reports about this case or reading about it in the newspaper. And Monday, I do have one thing I have to attend to first thing in the morning, so we're going to start Monday at 10 o'clock instead of 9. As we announced at the beginning, Tuesday and Thursday next week, we'll recess at 1. I would like to, after that, I'm going to try to make arrangements to change my own schedule to work in the afternoon. I think I told you I'd try to give you the heads up on that. If there's a problem with that, just let me know, but I just would like to try to get this case completed within the estimated time. So taking advantage of those afternoons on Tuesday and Thursday would be helpful. Not next week, but the week after that. So we will see you on Monday to begin at 10 o'clock.
Court, all rise, please. Jurors, you leave your notes. Step down, follow me, please. Watch your step.